So tell us about the importance of recent elections and if it brings you hope.
Who wrote that question?
Does the recent election of indigenous people bring you hope?
Yes. I was so happy to see Nevada being ahead of, I think it's belief of Biden's, what do we call it?
Nevada
Little.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Campaign?
Yeah.
Nice.
I thought maybe she was going to be here today.
That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe our next one.
I go with Flanagan, because she was just Barbara anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Peggy gives me hope.
Yeah.
Peggy gives me hope.
Yeah, for sure.
She is genuine, her most authentic self, and she loves the people. And this isn't a purchase, this is just my personal opinion. So she tries to walk in the best way she can. So she makes me want to do the work to find more leaders to stand up and say, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that work.
Gives me some hope because finally there's people like us. Finally some of our people are stepping up and telling us. Having the chance to express what is important to us. It's a start.
Yeah.
I have hope, but I also have a reality way of seeing things. We do have a voice at the table, and it is spoken loud and clear by those that have achieved that level of political aspiration. But because the demographics say that 71% of the ones in Minnesota are Caucasian, that the reality is that there's always going to be, you're all going to be outvoted until you get a critical mass of people that think the way you do. And usually that happens when they're impacted by decisions like the pollution of the water, the air, and desecration of lands and things, so that you can't grow anything. The impact is affected that way. The economy is showing now that it's in free fall and everybody's affected. So we see that anger and that violence that's happening because of that. So the impact, when those that are affected by it are impacted by that, then they seem to act in crazy ways. So I do have hope, but the reality is that until the demographics, or at least the critical mass that are thinking the same way, is able to influence the majority, we have a serious problem ahead of us.
That's one thing that even locally see, and it's important for people to understand not just the voting process, but the way politics work. For example, Duluth, we have the Native. We have one Native American on city council.
So far.
At this time. At this time. And the thing of it is that a lot of people don't understand the way politics work, And it's not like one person can get in there and, this is the way it's gonna be, and everybody agrees. And sometimes they have to back down a little bit to try and get other people on their side, so that when something else comes along, they're more likely to vote with them. And it's really tough because there's so many important issues that they have to really wait and try to build up the support for, when we all want to see it happen instantly. And it doesn't work that way. And a lot of people get frustrated and they're like, well, why did I vote for this person? And we need to vote more in, and there wouldn't have to be so much, backing down to try and get support for other things. And we need to get our people in higher places, like mayors, senators, the governors, the president,
Commissioners.
all of that,
Like Tim, yeah.
And, I know I keep using Duluth as an example here, but it's because I'm extremely frustrated with Duluth right now. Talking about issues that are important to our people. One thing that really drives me crazy is that mainstream America thinks we're disposable. We don't matter, so we're going to just throw us away. Our homeless people don't matter. We're just going to shove them out of the way so nobody can see them. And just recently, the AIM group in the Twin Forts came up with a plan to house our homeless neighbors for the winter. So they're not out on the streets freezing. So their women are not out there being assaulted. And before we've even got the proposal together, we're getting calls from the mayor saying, oh, that's not going to happen. And I really want to say, do you really think that we should just be out there freezing to death? Do you want our people to wind up on your doorstep freezing to death? Because I'll tell them where you live. Yeah, so I'm really frustrated. This is a good example of voting for the lesser of two evils. Doesn't always work in our favor. In the beginning I supported her. I supported her for years. As a city councilor, supported her. As mayor, I supported her. Up until a couple of weeks ago, I was a very strong supporter. But we find recently that she's ignoring the indigenous community. Even though we have an indigenous commission, and our job on the indigenous commission is to advise the city council and the mayor. But then the mayor pushes something through. I learned about it on Facebook. And I'm on the commission. And I learned about it on Facebook just before it was supposed to be voted on. It's a good example of how we need to hold these people accountable. I believe was it Rick earlier was talking about the accountability, and the voting is very important. But once that vote is done, we have to hold them accountable.
That's
I don't
why we
care
keep
if-
open dialogue.
Yeah, I don't care if we have to gather as many of us together as possible and stand outside their house and make them notice us and make them pay attention, or down at City Hall, or down at the governor's mansion, or wherever it is. We need to stick together and we need to hold them accountable.
One way I think that the mayor and the city administration was held accountable was that between the collective communities of the so-called American Indian community and the indigenous community, and Anishinaabe, and Duluth, and also the African American community, 'Cause they came right to our office and said, what happened about the name change, that you're there, team. So in solidarity, was where that happened, the holding to account.
Yep.
So there's, you know, lots of folks because of racism that will look at those other communities and say they're not part of us and things. But for mutual interests, we have to be in solidarity with all them other communities also. And there's beauty in that for our interests as a group, collectively. But I think that system down, or any system, has a way of corrupting the individual. It's really pervasive in this form of governance. People get corrupted. The finest of people. As an example, you have that famous Dave that was with the Bureau of Indian Affairs for, I would say, a couple weeks or a month, maybe, and then he resigned because he knew that he wouldn't be able to effectuate any change. So, you know, those are the realities. And we're talking a lot about truths,
Yeah.
personal truths, our community's truth. We have collective truths. And we have factual truths. So we got to think about those and how we use those to make some decisions in the future.